Well, I just wanted to welcome everybody to this this talk with our distinguished guest, Kimberly Becoat, who is an artist out of New York City. She, how do you describe
Play
what
nice.
Kimberly does? I'm playing nice. Kimberly is an interesting artist. I think that the things that I care most about for the context in which we're meeting her is that she's a teaching artist. She's an artist she's a designer, obviously. She's a contemporary artist. She's exhibiting nationally. She's being written about nationally. She's entering national collections. That means to somebody who's not an artist, you'd be like, are tax collections coming from her? No, her work is entering major established collections of art around the nation. But with all of that, and that's to be praised, I think what I care most about with all of that is that at the core, she really enjoys making things, and she enjoys teaching people how to make things. Walking people through the process of arriving at an artistic language. That is not something everybody can do. And so it's for us as faculty, as students, I think that's one of the qualities you have, Kimberly, that I'm excited about, and I'm excited for everybody to meet you. More about your biography will come out as we're talking. But as an introduction, please welcome Kimberly Becoat.
Hey. I sounded nice. I was like, I did do all of that.
You may want to follow Kimberly Becoat later on Instagram, because she will talk to y'all. She will.
Yeah,
right?
I'm a hoot. Yeah.
This exhibit is titled Something Extraordinary, a visual review of Story as Timeless. And that last portion of Story as Timeless, I don't know if you remember this. When we were on a Zoom meeting with all 8 artists and a number of us, we were all trying to figure out what the title should. I'd come up with some highfalutin academic sounding title, and they're like, we don't agree with that. Yeah. And we. Kimberly was the one who arrived at this notion of, but isn't this the timelessness of story that is somehow the thing that we should be capturing? And we all agreed that that should be part of the title. And I just want to start with this idea, Kimberly. We're going to talk about Seneca Village. We're going to talk about other qualities in your work and things that you've addressed. But I wanted to start with this kind of general concept of story and timelessness, and how you have found yourself in an art journey, arriving at some of these ideas.
Arriving at ideas that are timeless?
Story and timeless.
Boy. That was a trick question. You didn't tell me you were gonna ask that.
I know.
Arriving at timeless, I think because I'm never, how can I put this? I'm never looking at time as a construct. I think that was something that we talked about on the Zoom meeting. Mm-hmm. So when I'm looking at subjects that interest me, I'm never going, this happened in 18 so and so and so and so. I'm present of mind that that's when it happened. Mm-hmm. But I'm also present in mind that a lot of these things that that happened then are still happening. So then what does that really mean in terms of how we approach new ideas and solutions? To the, that sounds like Star Trek, the time continuum. Because as it started coming out of my mouth, I'm like, I'm gonna start. The Trekkie has come out. I'm a Trekkie. Yeah, I was just watching Picard last night. Right. I'm sorry. So, but in that spirit, I'm very much a futuristic type of person. So when you're looking at the future, you really are looking at what's happened in, you know, and I know we all probably have avenged ourselves out and Wakanda'd ourselves out, but multiverses. You know, what's happened in one multiverse and what's happened in this multiverse. And if I existed in this multiverse, what would have happened if that happened and that happened? So when I'm looking at time, I'm not looking at it as, oh, you know, it has this, it's fluid. It's gonna be what it's going to be. And all these things are happening again, excavation, repositioning of bodies, how the black body moves through time, how we extracted systems. What do systems look like? How do the systems get reappropriated? What does that look like when systems fight between each other? So none of that has not stopped happening.
Right.
So I never look at time as, you know, yes, we are all very present.
Yeah.
Thank God. We're all very present, but there are a lot of things that are happening that have already happened already, you know. And when I say that, you're like, woo, no, I'm not trying to sound all spooky, but there's a lot of things when you're doing your research, and a lot of people don't understand that about artists, how much research you do before there is even a creation of the work. There's a ton of research that I do. I think the Seneca Village, I think I told you I was looking at Seneca Village for a cool 10 years. No one even really kind of sort of knew what the heck I was talking about.
Right.
And I'm from New York. And I'm talking about native New Yorkers. I'm a native New Yorker, born and raised in Harlem. And I'm talking about you have native New Yorkers that didn't know a hoot, you know, about Seneca Village. Less more that it was a space in time.
You've set this up so well.
I'm good at that.
You're very good at this. But what I wanted, part of what I wanted to bring out is, look, we're in a room full of mostly representational art. How many of you all raise your hands are art majors? Okay, so this is very important for you in particular, but it's important for all of us. There is this thinking, and I want you to talk about Seneca Village, and we're going to get there.
I'm just using that as sample.
It's just a wonderful, the way you just, pardon the very conceptual question that I asked at the very beginning, went right to Final Jeopardy, right? And we were floating around a little, but the reason why that was important for everybody to see and witness is you're not just waking up one day with a crayon in your hand and saying, I think I'll make colors. There is a process.
It's a process.
Right. And so I wanted to ask.
Does everybody understand that? Does that make, you know, seriously, because that, it doesn't really matter. Now I'm going into teacher mode.
That's good.
But it doesn't really matter if you don't know what the matter is that you're going to work on. And that work it can take years. And sometimes you have to put it away and come back to it. Does that make sense? And be okay with it. Don't get mad, you know, like, oh man, see, I had this whole, it's just not the specific present time to deal with that. The answers will come, but continue to do the research. And then that will help you sort out how you're going to do the work, what it's gonna look like, how it's gonna be constructed. Is it figurative? Is it abstract? Is it sculpture? Is it multimedia? You know, then you'll figure out, he knows my favorite point guard is Kyrie Irving, the language, the English, you know, the spin that you put on the ball.
Right.
You know, does that make sense? Yeah, I play basketball too. So, you know, so that when you're spinning it, you'll know, because you would have perfected it and perfected it and perfected it, so that when you get ready to go pull things out in the studio, you're like, it all comes together.
I want to backtrack just a little
Okay.
so we're sitting in front of Kimberly Becoat's work in this. She is one of 8 conversations in this show, and as you can tell, there are only 2 abstract artists in this show, and one of them isn't fully abstract. One of his works is very representational. I wanted to start by asking you why you work this way. Like why, and you can maybe unpack the story. I know what I'm going to ask you. Tell us about Seneca Village. Let's start there.
Get it out the way.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, right.
So, Seneca Village is does anyone know anything about Seneca Village, or is it completely like, tell me how far I got to go back?
We're going to do the Cliff Notes short version of what it is.
Short version. Mm-hmm. So Seneca Village was a space that is now Central Park. So in the 1800s, you had this dude, this mayor, in the 1800s, very much like a former president we once had. And he made this conscious decision to put his eye on this land where free blacks, some Irish, and also some Native Americans, but mostly free black people lived. Populations about 300 people. They had schools, they had churches, they were thriving in their own sanctuary, somewhere between if you're thinking in terms of how far, I'd say from one end of, from where the Guggenheim Museum is on the east side to where Museum of Natural History is on the west side. Does that make sense? So like it's the 80s, but on those 2 different sides, from east to west.
It would be a New Yorker to think that we all know these streets. This
so
is how New Yorkers.
Some of y'all do. I mean, a lot of people come into the city. So that's why I try to frame it with museums.
Yeah, I hear you.
Because a lot of you go to museums. So from where on the east side where the Guggenheim Museum is, which is in the 80s, to the other side of the 80s and the 90s where the Museum of Natural History is, that's the west side. It stretched all the way there. We have no idea what happened to the 300 people.
Wow.
We found maybe, and I speak about maybe 1, so we found maybe out of that 300, about 8 or 10. There's some artifacts that were found in the early 90s. Little baby shoes and things like that I got to see. A lot of this work, her name is escaping me, but she's a professor at Columbia University. Mm-hmm. So this is her expertise, but you can always go look it up, Seneca Village. And now they actually have a marker, which was really a lot for me to see because I was working on these 2 different, talk about history and time. Mm-hmm. I was working on the Exonerated 5.
Okay.
Central Park 5.
Wow.
At the same time I was working on Seneca Village.
Wow.
So I was working on this series called Urbania.
Wow. Yeah.
Where I was recreating environments. I grew up in the projects in Harlem, and I was recreating what the projects could be. And that's how I fell into Seneca Village by fluke. Wow. Oh, what could the projects be? If the projects were really designed to be these spaces that were open and sanctuaried and fluid and open to the language of the people that thrived in them, what would they look like? What would they be like? How would I do? And so I was creating my own little world called Urbania. That's how that happened. And then I started to dig into New York City history to see if there were any spaces where Black people lived, and boom.
And thrived.
And I grew up on 99th Street, not too far, so that's how spooky it was.
Yeah.
It got real spooky. I said, oh man, this is chilling. I grew up not too far from where Seneca Village is. Right. And I grew up not too far where the Central Park 5, of which 2 of them that I know, where the situation happened. So it was just destined that this land that is now Central Park, which was excavated, it was the first time that the word eminent domain was ever used and put into the lexicon of words that we used.
Describe what that is.
Eminent domain is when the land is really just taken from you, your property. And I should say each black person in there owned their own property. Now, at the particular time, property was so important, and it is now, I tell you, it's still happening.
Yeah.
How important is property? Property is so important that without property rights, they did not have the right to vote as a black person. So giving up their property in Central Park also gave them up the right to vote.
Right, and they weren't giving it up. It was taken.
It was taken because he wanted to, the mayor at this time, I refuse to say his name, wanted this land and wanted to expand it out for the rich affluent.
Right.
And move, in his words, from documents, move the miscreants, which they were not. They were all working people, blacksmiths and, all working, hardworking people, move the miscreants further up into Queens and further up into the Bronx. We were just talking about the Bronx and how the Bronx got split up. So, and then that was it. So for a good span of, I can't remember the time. I want to say maybe 40, 50 years, these people were thriving and living on the land that was theirs, and it was taken away from them.
How did you arrive at a place where, I know that you started working on Urbania, and then at some point in time you're working on Seneca Village, because now I want to talk about the works that are behind us to some degree, and you'd shared some really useful information with me about the material around the works. And so could you just give us the backdrop of why these works exist?
These works exist. Another curator, she worked at the New York Historical Society, Katie Fuller at the time. She was working at the Brooklyn Historical Society, I'm sorry. And she came to me with an idea about decolonizing monuments. Mm-hmm. And there's a space in Brooklyn, the old stone house in Brooklyn. And she wanted to examine how we can, I guess, reimagine or revitalize spaces and kind of put monuments, but not in a traditional way, together to certain areas that were not tended to. Her main thing was she wanted us, the challenge for us as artists was to make the work not precious. We were like, what are you talking about? So yeah, keep the work precious, not precious, because we want the kids to be able to touch it. They come in and out of the old song. I was like, and how do you guys feel about that? And so then it sent me on exploring materials that invoke and invite sanctuary and grounding. So I started using soil. Wow. I started making paper. It's on paper.
It's the perfect experimental project.
Yeah,
it's like make work that's not precious.
Make work that's okay. So
wow.
let me just take this paper and make paper, and put it on paper, and this is probably what my ancestors were doing, like repurposing information and repurposing areas of land, and then that became a part of the work, repurposing. And revitalizing areas that originally were ours, which is the name of that piece, ours, and giving it our voice, giving it our language, and making it speak our speak. That's my thing, making it speak our speak. So there's a lot of repurposed materials.
Was it hard for you to do that, or was it fun? Like the idea of making work that is not supposed to be precious. That's such an interesting task.
It was fun. It was frustrating. It took a lot of humbling. nobody wants to make work to see it. Don't touch it.
Right.
But
yeah.
we're artists. You really do want the person to touch it. At the end of the day, I kind of do want to touch. And I've taught all ages, and there's nothing more satisfying when I did the art talk there for what grade was it? It had to have been like 3rd or 4th grade. And they were like, ooh. Like sometimes, and so you remember why you started certain pathways to the materials that you work in, because it is that kind of kind of effect when you're working with your materials.
And the whole idea of decolonizing monuments in my thinking, it feels connected to decolonizing the museum space. Like I remember when I had when I was in New York as a high school student, they almost threw me out of the Met. Okay, so
See,
here I am.
You are throwing people out. See?
This big, I know. Yeah, this is where I learned it.
See?
This big chocolate teenager, and I see this work of art, and there's this glaze on it, and I just forgot where I was, and I was like, it's so. And I just about, and the security guard had been watching me, and he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm so sorry, I wasn't thinking, But it's like, there is this, the idea of making work that somebody could actually act on. Like this is, it's not supposed to last forever, right?
It's an action.
I think that's so beautiful. And these were conceived in that way.
They were conceived in that way, and then, which then helped me with the other series and getting serious about looking at things that we created in the hood, that I grew up in. I mean, and I didn't grow up in a hood, because I was on the Upper East Side. So, I mean, but yes, they were the projects, because it's East Harlem. Mm-hmm. So I've seen some hoods in my day, from some of the kids that I teach, but just it was all very much a reminder of play and work, and what that must have looked like in Seneca Village. Play and work at the same time, being conscious of what you're putting in to your environments, to nurture the environment, to give it what it needs to sustain itself. So then it became about sustainable materials.
Yeah.
And so then I started looking at Nick Cave, and I started looking at Mark Bradford and Howardina Pindell. You could kind of see some things. And that was what I was looking at. Those are the people, those are the big wigs that really, when they're asked to play, they play.
They play, right, with materials and space. And
Mark is not afraid to assemble it, and he even calls the whole process decollage.
Wow.
And that, and so when I was working on these works, I was like, okay, so we start backwards.
Yeah.
We're gonna put it all on the paper and then pull it back.
Can I ask you, okay, let me just ask you another question that may seem, it's connected. Did you always know you were an artist? Like right now, you're laying things out. Someone's coming and you're being commissioned to work on pieces of work that are not precious, and you're naming these artists, and I'm pulling from this and that. And I wonder, as I'm trying to imagine, young Kimberly.
Young Kimberly thought she was going to be, seriously, and in no order, I thought I was going to be playing for the WNBA, I swear. You couldn't tell me I wasn't going to be Teresa Witherspoon until my knee went out. I'm not kidding. Wow. I really love, when I tell you, he knows. When I tell you, if you can hear a scream on social media when games are on, it's bad. March Madness, I'm freaking out right now. What games did I miss? Oh, yeah. So I really thought I was going to be in the WNBA. I really thought I was Indiana Jones. And I mean in a kind of archaeological way. Mm-hmm. And so you can see that in my work. It's very, we're on a quest. Those are my favorite movies.
Yeah.
You know, where I'm like, okay, it's the Holy Grail. What's gonna happen?
Like the adventure of making.
The event. You know, like I really thought I was going to be either in archaeology, which I did actually study archaeological studies in some way, shape, or form, and look what happened. You know.
You're literally excavating.
I'm really
and finding out about your history at the same time. That's crazy.
So so when I studied it with that intention, and then I got fascinated with maps. Like maps were like.
Yeah.
Like it all comes back, and maps became a big deal for me, and then one day I walked into, you had your experience at the Met, I had my experience at the Y at 135th Street. And the very first time I saw in the Y, which is still there, the Aaron Douglas mural.
The Aaron Douglas has inspired a lot of people. Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe because I thought I was Teresa Witherspoon and I never noticed whenever I walked into the Y.
Yeah.
But there was that moment, they used to have this thing called the Boys and Girls Harbor. I don't even know if they do it anymore.
Yeah.
But, I used to go there and play ball and stuff like that. I was like, wow. I was like, that's always, they like, Kimberly, that's been on the wall. That was on the wall before you were born.
Wow.
I remember someone shouting it out to me. I was like, okay, you ain't gotta yell. I'm just asking questions, why are we yelling, New Yorkers, I'm not aggressive like that, but New Yorkers can be aggressive.
New Yorkers are so aggressive. They're so nice and aggressive at the same time. I'm like, take this cake, come on now.
I'm like, girl, calm down. I'm just asking, was it on the wall? How long?
That's so funny.
She said, well, you pay attention, and then that's when it hit. So that was like 5th grade.
Wow.
But I was big into social studies. Big. Like I can rock global studies, anything like that, I'm into it.
Yeah.
So it always was going to be something like that was going to tie it all in. And and so that's when and then it took off. And then I couldn't find Aaron Douglas in a book. And then that became frustrating to me.
Yeah.
And that sent me on a quest about how many other Black artists I don't know.
Yeah.
So every artist that I know that's Black, I learned on my own. I didn't learn it in school.
Yeah.
I didn't learn it in, I'm not going to say the colleges, I don't want to embarrass you, but I didn't learn it in the colleges that I went to. I didn't learn it in high school.
Yeah.
I learned them on my own, know.
Yeah.
I just kind of was just attracted to it. And then walking into the Guggenheim Museum and seeing for the very first time and knowing that I was going to be a painter and a collagist, seeing a Romare Bearden, there's nothing like it. And I don't mean a lithograph, I mean an original Romare Bearden collage painting, and a lot of people don't know he's abstract artist. And then seeing that and just like, what? And then finding out that he was also that he was doing these pieces of work in the night after being a social worker in the day.
He was a working artist.
I was, what?
Yeah.
And the massive amount of work that this man put in as a social worker. Can you imagine being a social worker and just like the gravity of that work?
Yeah.
And then going home at night and then making pieces about the South, actually. Yeah. He wasn't making his pieces about Harlem yet. He was making pieces about the South and bringing out all that sun and all that light and all that texture and all that layer.
That's remarkable. I didn't know all of this about you. But what it's doing is it's really it's making things make sense. It's painting a picture because so much of your life you have just kind of lived the life of an artist who's working at her craft. You're just working at it, and I think that there's a way that the art life is romanticized as this thing. There's this thing that just happens, and then you
I hate the word passion.
Right, and you cascade into a studio, and a light shines.
I'm like, passion,
there's something gritty about it, right, and kind of the making of it. And I'm just so.
Kimberly has a passion. No, I don't have a passion. It's work. That's why it's called artwork. I tell kids that all the time. It's called artwork. It's not called art passion. Not called art play.
Yeah.
It's called artwork. You get up with an intention to what are we going to do today? How is it going to happen? Once you get really into your groove, you even know which piece is going to speak to you that day. And I know that sounds really weird and wooey, but really, like, okay, this one don't want to be, I call them art babies. Girl don't want to be bothered today. Okay, well, I guess we're working on you, and you know, and even though you know that's the piece that needs the most work, that's not the one that's calling, and so it's work. And when you educate, it's a lot, and so then the teaching component comes from looking at artists like Romare Bearden and Alma Thomas. Like, so most of my sheroes are teachers that actually were artists at the same time.
Working artists.
They're working artists, and you are floored.
Yeah.
At the amount of work. Augusta Savage.
Yeah, she's one of my.
And then she had the nerve and the audacity to open a school.
Yeah.
And teach Jacob Lawrence, who also taught.
Yeah.
So that's pretty weak. That's you know, so I can't ever talk about. So whenever somebody says to you, "Oh, geez, that's a passion," no, I got your passion. I want to do something else, but the camera's on. Like, I got your passion. I got your passion for you. It's not a passion. It's a practice.
It's a practice.
You know, just like people in the medical field. That's what I have a practice. You know, I'm going to the studio. I'm going to work.
Yeah.
Leave me alone. You know, bring food, put the snacks there, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, and you work. That's what you do. And people are not going to get it.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm mad. She's like, I'm mad already. Right? They're not going to get it. They're not going to get it. And so, yeah, man, I wish I had something I wanted to say. Like, I felt that when she did that. They're not going to get it.
Yeah.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news.
Yeah.
But it's better you know now, so that when you're in your practice, you can throw it away. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? You just okay, all right. Well, what am I doing today?
Yeah.
You know, and you got to give yourself a lot of pats on the back. You got to give yourself a lot of patience. You got to be kind to yourself. Really be kind. And if you're going to even dare to teach or instruct, you have to be kind. You don't got to be nice, but you have to be kind. You have to remember that that is a person that is about to do what I'm doing.
Right.
And it's a tremendous step. It's a tremendous leap, because the world doesn't owe us anything, but it is what we're here to do.
Yeah. I have a feeling that so much of what you're saying is resonating not just with our students, but with our faculty members. As you're speaking, I'm just like, oh my God, like this is literally like it's hard to express that to students.
I'm working at McConnell Museum, and I was just telling you, and one of the teaching artists, I call her my little minions, but they're your age, but I call her my little, you know, and she goes to Pratt, and she's like, you know, she's like, how you do it? I said, you do it. I said, and that's why I don't want you. And so that's why when I'm saying go home, you know, and I go bye, I really mean bye. I mean bye, because I'm going to go paint. Bye. What you doing? Bye. You know, are we wrapping this up? Wrap it up. You know, and so the minute you start taking yourself seriously, everybody's not going to buy into it, but a lot more people are going to buy into it.
Yeah.
You know, so when you start saying, oh, I gotta go.
Yeah.
You know, like he'll tell you, I can't talk to you. I will get back to you, my studio hours, or blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Like, I got time between this time and that time, and I will call you back. So the minute you start thinking about it as a business and a practice, the sooner you start doing that, the better you'll be.
People in college thought I was crazy because I was an art historian that was my major. I was an art history major, but I was so focused in that way. I didn't realize that I was creating boundaries and a studio time. I didn't understand that's what I was doing. I just knew if there was a free wall that was anywhere, that was a potential space for me to work on. And so I would ask people. I asked people at the school, like, is anyone using that wall over there? And I had so much artwork that the art majors thought that I was an art major. So when they were having their senior show, they're like, where is your work? And I'm like, I told y'all I'm art history here. But I'm just as serious as you. And so it is an interest. I think the art students need to hear that grittiness, the scrappiness of it all. Yeah.
Even when I don't have studio space, and I actually like working from home now. You know, I hate getting up and going outside, and I'm like, oh man, now I got to reset my whole.
Yeah.
I'm like, dang, it's beautiful to be able to walk in the space that's in my home and then see them at different points of the day, because it informs you differently, and then you can jot it down quicker, or you can research it quicker. You don't have to go back and run and try to catch it and recreate it. And like, what did I do and what was I thinking? So I actually like working from home.
Yeah.
You know, I don't mind it at all. Actually, some of my biggest pieces were made in my I missed that apartment. It was a big. I'm just thinking about it. Oh, Crown Heights, what's up? But it was this huge 2-room studio. But it was like they called it a 1-bedroom, but it was really a 2-room studio. But it was big enough to be like a small 1-bedroom. When curators would come, they're like, "Are you serious? You just did pieces like big like that and bigger, laid out on the floor." You know,
and develop it there.
Teaches you. One thing it taught me is how to organize.
Yeah. Space.
How to do storage, how to work smarter, how to manage my time, how to things like that will challenge you and come back up in your work in ways you never even thought.
Yeah. May I also ask you, just as we're beginning to the last few questions, I also want to give students a chance to, or anybody a chance to ask. I have to ask, how, and this is a big last question, but so you can answer it however you wish. The way you work, the abstract language, why this? Why not representational work? What has this done for you? Or what has this allowed you to do? Or because I think that's a question that many people have about abstract art. They're like, I don't get abstract art. What is that?
Abstract art is the songwriter. Anybody can anybody can sing the song, but the person that goes into the Songwriters Hall of Fame is really the person that gets all the royalties.
Wow.
So all of the stuff that you think that you are doing in a figurative piece, you already have done in the abstract. You've laid it out, you've layered it a specific way, you've chosen the color, so that means you've chosen the mood, I hope.
Wow.
I don't know. Sometimes I'm looking at artwork and I'm like, I don't know. When I start giving, the church. Speaking of church, when you start getting that.
Right. That poor child doesn't know their colors.
You're gonna start doing the little and the rocking back and forth. I don't know, but abstract art is really about the mood. And the mood has zero to do with the figure. When you're in the mood, you're not looking, no matter what the mood is, because we're all adults. But when you're in the mood, you ain't thinking about all of the other stuff. You dig? I'll say it like that. You're thinking about the basics. Yeah. Abstract art is geometry. It makes sense. It's never going to not make sense. It's always going to go together, no matter how you're putting it together. So when you're taking it apart, that's why I love maps. Because when you take it apart, you're always still going to have to know where you need to go. You're going to the line is still going to direct to a point. So it's just the understanding of what's in the middle between that point and that point. And why does it marry? Why are those two things intersecting? So for instance, when you're looking at a Romeo Beer piece, okay, well, why did he, not only did he create a whole color palette, he then took photographs and married them with the color palettes and then cut out the color palettes into shapes. People don't realize that. So it's much more harder to do an abstract piece than it is to do a figurative one, because it's almost as if you are recreating the skeletal system of your body.
Wow.
You are the physician, so you're reaffixing things all the time so that it has a whole different other understanding. So when I'm doing a piece like this, that just looks as simple like, oh, okay, she just put that way and that goes that way. But when I tell you that the piece is called Hours, well, then that means that everything in every direction is fluid. So I'm not moving anything, or that one's much more figurative, or if I'm doing something like imminent domain and I decide to add in the maps as a component, but then I try to make everything green, everything fresh, everything restorative, everything pure. Green is light. It rejuvenates itself, the body, and so it becomes a very spiritual piece. You can lose yourself in that piece and not realize that there's other things that I put in there until you're up close and like, oh, she put that.
Right.
And like you probably looking at, oh, she put that, and it's there. And so
just as a shape on the floor, as before we installed it, it was on the floor. We were just laying things out. We didn't just leave it on the floor.
No,
it was on the floor. We were laying things out. But it
floor.
also felt like a patch of land.
It was a patch of land.
Yeah.
And so what happens when you make a patch of land a monument, to a story of a people? And if you're looking at the maps are actually the actual maps that are the plots of land that they owned. So everything is intentional. But abstract art is really the songwriter. Figurative work is wonderful. It's like it's the melody in the song. It's the bridge. It's the bridge, and that doesn't mean you don't need it, and that doesn't mean you're not going to see figurative stuff in my work. But it's always going to have intention. It's just not just going to be there just because I got tired of doing abstract work. It's never that. It's never that.
Wow. I've never heard abstract art described quite the way you've described it.
Thank you.
It's actually, it really does as somebody who does not, of course, now you've created the question. There's
Now
a
he's jealous.
question.
Now
No,
he's
no,
jelly.
no, not jealous.
You jelly, you jelly, you jelly.
I am not jealous. No, but that jealous. I'm not that jealous. But but what you've done is you've put the seed in me where I'm just like, I was about to say, as somebody who's not an abstract artist, but now I'm wondering the degree to which I actually use abstraction in my work.
You do.
It's
in your
so
work.
interesting. I just have never heard it described this way. And I think this is just useful for me as well.
Yeah.
It's really useful.
And it's very didactic work. Oh my Lord. And you really you have to think out so many different things. What colors, how the textures are going to, the mood. Are these going to be color swatches that I create? What is that going to say? Is this a monoprint? How am I monoprinting on top of the print? There's all sorts of different ways to paint it. You know, sometimes my abstract works are just pure painting.
Do you make works? Okay, it's easy to do this as a representational artist. Like in high school, I went to high school with one of the people in this show, Jaja Swinton. His work is over there. And I remember this is when we knew we'd arrived somewhere. Like this is where in high school, here, 17-year-old Imeh. And there is a gallery show we're all gonna be in, the juniors or the seniors, juniors. And Jaja's like, what are you gonna put in there? And I'm like, I know what I could put in there, Jaja. I know how to make the people come in there, and I know how to make them cry. I know how to do it. But I don't want to do that. I want to do something that's more conceptual, but I also want to win the award for best work. And so we were having this argument over what to do.
So competitive.
So well, we were. It's been like this for a while. So this is.
I went to fashion industries. I was just like,
no. I wanted to win the award for best in show. So I was like, Jaja, because we were always competing. I'm like, Jaja, I'm gonna win this award. This is why. And then I won. But the point is that
terrible.
Here's my question. My question is, do you make work for it to be sold?
No.
Okay.
Never. No.
Good. I just wanted to. I was curious because there's a way that designers can design for the sake of the design being eye candy. There's a way that you can make somebody be like, I have to own that piece. And we know how to do it. I wonder.
People get mad because I don't repeat, because I switch it up so much.
Good, yeah.
Like, if you go to my website, you'll see all the different styles I do. Kimberly, I'm not doing that. We're done. That has been, the said has been said. And I don't want to do that anymore. You got a problem? I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing now. And it's scary. And then all of a sudden, all the works that you thought that no one would, those are the ones that sold.
Yeah.
And then then you get that call from the Schomburg and the amazing, and you guys should all go to the Schomburg, the amazing Tammy Lawson, and she's like, she's like, girl, where did that come from? I'm like, oh, these were cooking.
Right.
Oh, these were cooking when I was doing those.
Yeah. I asked that question in part because we have students who, many of whom are graphic designers, and I mean, they're different.
I went in art. I was art advertising design. Ooh,
oh, really?
Good stories, but that's for another time, part 2. But art advertising design. So I can do product. So I know how to polish.
Yeah.
I can make a baby shine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can make it pop.
Right.
I'm downplaying my strengths because I know that I have tricks that I know I can do that other people don't know how to do.
Yeah.
Because I'm in, graphic people, they know there's certain things you can do. You make it, I got you. So I can make it pop if that's, I pull out all the tricks.
Right.
But don't be afraid to change.
Yeah.
I get, I'm always excited when I see people's work that I've been seeing for years, and then all of a sudden they pull out their drawings from 10 years. I'm like, where were these?
Yeah.
Because nobody wanted to see those other pieces over and over again. I want to see that.
Yeah.
So, that, and speaking of Derek Adams, as we were talking about, dear friend, he does that a lot. And I remember we didn't go to college together, but we would just have these conversations, he and I, and just switching it up.
Yeah.
And I remember one time he was just doing performance.
Yeah.
And I was just doing pure abstract. I mean, really pure Jack Whitten type stuff. I was just taking the brush and Jackson Pollock type stuff. I'm gonna be the Black Pollock. Boom. So I have pieces like that, that I, I keep in my personal thing. But don't be afraid to switch it up. He switches up every time. So I come back and then he sees me do it, and it is kind of like a little bit of competition. You're like, oh wow, Kimberly's doing that.
The competition part of this, when you can find one of your peers, it's fun. It's fun. It's a good thing to push each other. Right.
Yeah, I'm like, so when he started doing certain things, I was like, oh, okay, I can do that, but I'm gonna do it like this.
Right.
And so, and he'll send me a text like, I saw what you did. Okay. I gotta say something. So, it's good to push yourself. It's good to see what others are doing, but it's good to mix it up, to see where your strengths are, but also where you want to challenge, how you want to challenge yourself for the next, my next challenge is bringing back photography.
Okay.
In the work, but in a not so obvious way, so I'm still trying to figure it out. This whole idea of photographs on Mylar, I don't know why.
Wow, yeah.
But I was like, wow, what if I do photographs on Mylar and then collage?
Yes.
I'm like, ooh, that came last Tuesday. I was like,
Right.
Let me write that down.
Where it came from, we don't know.
Don't know. Don't remember who I was looking at, but just it just stuck in my mind like, wow, that would look nice, and then maybe having that in this, as the next phase of the Seneca Village pieces, these kind of ghost Dara type of, Look, she's like, whoa, so I tell you, me that came nice, like, okay, and I'm brewing on it and I'm thinking about it and I'm thinking, how I want to do it and how, how translucent I want to make it and stuff like that. So, that's the play, and it's important to do that.
Could I ask you the final question before we open this up to, and this is, we have a body of amazing students.
Y'all are amazing.
Westfield State students have amazing.
Because y'all sat here and listened to me.
Right. But I mean, in terms of just, there is a sensibility that Westfield State students have. They're very honest about what they want to do, what they don't want to do.
No, I feel that.
What kind of advice, it's a very broad question, not everyone here is an artist, but is there I mean, I know the advice I'm walking away with. I'm gonna hold on to this idea of making art that isn't precious. I think that somewhere in there I need to live there this year, because it takes away this idea of perfection and allows you to explore. Do you have any advice for this group of students, just as parting words?
What do y'all want to know? I'd rather you just ask me. What do you want to know? Yeah.
Why do you wake up and choose art every day? Like, some people, they hate their jobs.
Right, yeah.
Why? Why art? Why art?
I walk right on out the door. Like, I quit. Peace. I'm just thinking about all the jobs. I like, peace out. Peace out. It was real. You have me in my heart. Yeah. Oh, that was Crate and Barrel. Yeah, I remember I walked down on Crate and Barrel. I was like, you right in my heart. Thank you for the 60% discount. I gotta go. The Crate and Barrel years. I still got my Wusthof knives though. Those knives really do last. But why do I wake up? Oh, oof, it just feels good. Dang, it's like, it opens up life. It opens up life in a very different way. I'm not ever thinking about that. I don't know what I came here to do. It's just like, okay, I came here to do this. I don't know what you came. Like, I don't know why you're here, but I know this is where this is it. This is it. And you got the little snot bubbles in your eyes and stuff, and your afro be lopsided. No, I'm just thinking, I'm serious. This is as pretty as I'm gonna look. I'm like, get my good light, girl. When I get back on that train tomorrow, it's gonna be a hair wrap and these shades. But it's joy. And joy is different than happiness.
Wow.
Okay? And it's joy. Joy is there are going to be moments when joy does not make you happy.
Wow.
But you are joyous in the act of it, in the grind of it, but you may not even be pleased with everything that you did in the studio, but joy is satisfying. So joy and satisfaction go together. Happiness is, I mean, he's cute and everything. It's the moment. All right, he cute, he bow-legged. Okay. And he's tall, And I may remember that person for maybe about 2 more stops on the train. Then I'm like, but I will remember what she looked like when I said what I said about work. Mm-hmm. I'll remember that, and it'll hit somewhere. I'm like, okay, I told that boy that it's about joy. Go get your, there's gonna be a day, where I'm not gonna be feeling on 10.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be feeling happy, but I'm gonna remember like, wow. But, I get to paint. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I get to paint. I get to, it's my day. I don't have to start it early in the morning. Mm-hmm. That's joy. Joy is, okay, I don't have to start it early in the morning, but okay, let me at least touch the paint today.
Yeah.
Let me gesso today. Let me just take some photos today. Or let me just play around with watercolors today. That's joy. And it'll make sense down the road when there's a moment when you are happy. Mm-hmm.
Are there any other, go ahead, what did you say?
Anything else?
Oh, are there any questions? Yes?
Yes.
Yeah. When you were talking about teaching, you mentioned that you had a difference between being kind to the students and being nice to the students. I wanted you to expand on that.
Nice is saying good morning, how you feeling, and you really don't care. Now, that's about as New York as I can get. I don't care. New Yorkers don't care how you feel. I'm being real.
It's so true.
We don't say good morning. That's why we nod. What's up? That's it. That's being nice. It's a courtesy. Nice is, hi, Kimberly, I hope you're well. Well, what if I'm not well? Do I still have to read this email? Hi, greetings, Kimberly, hoping you are well. I'm not well. Now what? Now where are we?
I'm never going to put that in an email again.
Don't, please.
I've done that so many times.
Just get to the
Hello,
point.
Hi, Faith. Hope all is well.
Mm-hmm. I don't know because are you going to hang around for the answer is what I'm saying.
Right.
That's kind.
Right.
Kind is, if you were going to do all of that, then you better hang around for the answer. So I'm kind with my students. So when I was really asking you on a scale of 1 to 10 how you felt, I was really trying to feel how you felt.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you something. So when you're teaching, no matter the grade, teach kindly. If you're not feeling up on point in the morning, what would make you think that a 10th grader feels bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at 8:45? I'm not bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at 8:00.
Right.
You know, I'm still getting my bearings. I took 2 naps today. Say good night. Laughing at you, was laughing at me. You know, it was like, you want to walk around, walk. You know, like,
right.
So being kind, and we talked about this also. Treat your students the way you want to be treated. You understand what I'm saying? You know, they're not necessarily employees, but kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And so
They have to buy in. They have to buy
in. You know, a lot of me getting up here, believe it or not, and we talk about this too, I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need a lot of nap time. Like, I'm gonna be in a hole like this, just sitting, you know, watching Swarm in the quiet for some hours after this, because I need to recharge. So if you need to recharge, imagine an adolescent, right? Imagine yourself. You're like, I need to recharge. So if you need to recharge, you don't know when you're saying those, I hope you are well, or how you doing, you don't know what environment they're going back to.
Yeah.
And I learned that working with Canva students who were in temporary living assistance housing. And you couldn't have told me that. You know why you couldn't have told me that? Because those were the actual students getting A's in my class. It ain't easy to get an A in Miss Kimberly's art class. I don't know about anybody else's art class. I'm like, you're not getting an A, you know. There's practice work, there's actual work, practice, paint, whatever we're doing, whatever the medium, and then there's actual papers.
Right.
You know, and that they were doing it and it was on time and there was never a complaint. And I don't know, one day I just asked a particular student, you know, I was really asking because I wanted to know.
How are you?
How are you? And he's like, you know, he kind of said it very nonchalant. Well, you know, we're getting ready to move. I was like, oh, you know, and I thought, you know, he just said because he was moving. No, they had to move to another temporary housing.
Wow.
And so throughout that whole entire year, this person was moving from temporary housing to temporary housing to temporary housing. And the only joy and happiness that he was getting was at school.
Wow.
So being nice, just like you can radar on my BS if I'm being, you can like, okay, you can tell when I'm BSing, they're gonna know, they like, you don't care.
Right.
You know, so never try to strive for nice. Strive for kind and be present in it. You know, if you're gonna go there, and then follow up and, ask them what they want you, how best you can serve them. Because being a teacher is being a servant, it's being a parent, it's being a mentor. So how can I best serve you? Because how you think you can best serve them is not probably how they want you to serve them. You know, and a lot of times they don't want you to figure it out. They just want you, which goes back to, you know, what I explore in my work. They want sanctuary. I'm big on that, you know, a lot of the work that I'm working on in my own practice is finding places of sanctuary. particularly, but not just for Black and brown children. What do those sanctuary spaces look like and feel like? And if it's 2.5 hours of Miss Kimberly, acting a whole fool, they like, she's a whole fool, but we like you. There, dear.
A whole fool.
Let me get you right, a whole fool. The entire, and teaching is acting, but not acting inauthentically. But really, you got to be like, good morning.
Mm-hmm. Just out of curiosity, how many of you all are thinking about becoming teachers? I'm just curious in the room. There are a few of you there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great answer.
Don't walk in there and be like, you dragging, they gonna drag.
Right.
So now we all dragging. So what we gonna learn? Nothing.
Right.
So like a lot of this, so that's why happiness doesn't matter. You got to do it for the joy.
Right.
Like, okay, whatever, we're gonna table that, and now we're gonna, like, okay, what's up, what's poppin', and you gotta know, you gotta speak their speak.
Yeah.
You know.
Are there any more questions? Any other?
Anything
Yeah.
else? Yeah.
Jose.
I'm just curious. In the art pieces behind you, there's like stuff, like seems to be like pasted on it. I'm just curious, like if that represents something.
Which piece? The piece right behind me?
Like all of the three pieces have something that seems to be tape on it, or like glue.
What, you mean housing? The housing pieces? I don't know. Like they're all.
What color?
Let's say the green one.
The green one?
Wait.
Well, we talked about the green one when we talked about in terms of monuments and representation of land and property. A stand for Andrew Williams. Andrew Williams was actually the last person to sell his property. So I wanted to kind of build a little bit of a monument to him. He was the last holdout.
Wow.
And he held out for 2 years before he sold his property. And that was how they came to get Seneca Village and then turn it into Central Park.
Wow.
So it's representative of his plot of land. So if you go up on it, that's actually his plot. Those were the plots that he actually owned.
So they did get compensated-ish?
Not really. Not really. Not really.
I didn't know what it. In regional planning, we just learned a lot about like eminent domain, and police power going along with
Yes.
that. So
Yes.
I didn't know because right now it's a lot.
And so you
get an even amount probably depending on the situation more. Than
more.
public
It's and so this is what I'm saying. We've gotten to a place again where time is no longer.
Fixed.
It's continuous.
It's a continuum. Yeah.
It's continuous. And I'm taking it from my story because I'm Black. So of course, I'm Black. That does not mean that it does not exist on a bigger scale, on a global scale. It does, and I'm very aware of that. And I've studied it. It just seemed, and then I also am more centralized and focused in on New York.
Wow.
And what happened to a lot of New Yorkers who were free, and how by whatever way lost their land, lost their property, different places that were completely whole villages. Harlem wasn't actually Harlem. Most of the Blacks actually lived down in Canal Street. And so when you go down there, a lot of the oldest Black churches are down in the village.
Wow.
And then you get churches like Abyssinian Baptist Church and Ebenezer Baptist Church and all these churches that are just as old. But so the eminent domain part became a part of the Black
It's
experience.
literally part of the story. This is amazing. It's like sad, and as you're talking about it, I'm like, you literally can't have a conversation without talking about.
And I hate doing that.
Wow.
I hate doing that. I'm like, oh man, I really want to go further than that. But when I'm talking about I don't want to say my history, but just the history of the Black American, that has been, unfortunately, a part of the story where we have been constantly uprooted and repositioned, and uprooted and repositioned. And then you talk, and then the Urbania piece is all about the projects. So the projects were created by the worst architect ever, Mr. Robert Moses, and yes, you can put that on camera, who completely obliterated New York City. The Bronx, we talk about the poor Bronx. The Bronx is so destroyed in so many different ways, architecturally, food deserts, the way it was structured, racially, and it was intentional. When you read his biography, it was intentional. His intention was to separate the Black and brown people from so much so that he made 2 airports that were unreachable to Black people.
Jesus.
Which is why it's hell to get to JFK
It
or
is
LaGuardia.
so hard to get to either one.
So that was
Wow.
and no one knows that until you, and when you read it, you're like, where he at? Where his gravestone at?
Right.
You know, like, it makes you so angry, the intention behind it. And so then you talk about redlining and white blight and then housing, the housing market, and that's still a part of eminent domain, and how that affects Black and brown people, and all that's still going on. We're getting ready to get into a whole nother one because of the, I call it the panini, the pandemic.
The panini.
The Ponderosa, or the Pandora's box.
Right.
But now we're seeing that, like you said, it's happening to everybody.
Yeah, it is fitting that we opened up the conversation.
That was a great question. Thank you.
It really was a good question. It's fitting that we opened up the conversation by kind of like this discussion of timelessness in story, and your amazing answer to that, because I think this is probably a good place to put a pin in our conversation. But I cannot thank you enough.
Oh, I'm happy
for,
to come. I'd be happy to come again anytime.
Pouring out so much wisdom, and making it clear to artists and to those of us who are not artists, just what goes into what it is you do, what you make, and the intentionality behind it. So I feel incredibly inspired.
Thank you.
And we just want to thank you so much. Everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.